sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabs podcast is also a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. We're going to start the show off tonight with a panel, but first, really quick, I do want to show you what we are going to discuss tonight. Should be a pretty interesting show Friday night. You know how we do what we do. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing, this is a really interesting conversation about independent media. Kim Iversen versus Tim Pool. And what is considered independent? That is a big one that we have to get into tonight. We're also going to discuss Trump makes a shocking move and how does this affect or will it affect history? We're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss the CNN panel. This is crazy. I don't know if you guys have seen the clips going around on X, but Tiffany Cross and Abby Phillips, this panel that was hosted on CNN recently. Yikes. We're going to get into that conversation. The people who are joining me tonight, the panel is General Strike US. So we're going to bring them on in just a second. And last but not least, we are going to discuss that new announcement from Homeland Security and how that will impact people who are already immigrated to the U.S. or people who are trying to immigrate to the U.S. This is a big one. And of course, we are also going to cover the craziest stories of this week, which is a fun part of the show that we newly added. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with our panel. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and bring in General Strike US. Hello.
Hello.
Hey
How
there.
are all of you? Everyone, this is General Strike US. I do want to give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. Let's go ahead and start with Dalin.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dalian, and I go by he, him, or they, them. And I am helping organize with General Strike US out of the Oregon chapter.
Okay. Day?
Peace, everybody. Power. My name is Daydreaming. I go by they and them. I help organize with our Detroit chapter.
And Jaden.
I'm Jaden, organizing out of the Bay Area, California. Do some zines and stuff, but glad to be here.
Awesome. So I have been interested in this for quite some time. A friend of the show sent this to me. I want to show this to everybody. This is your website. This is General Strike US. And everyone can see the website here. It says, "The strike is coming, join the movement." And we'll go to other parts of the website in just a second. But first and foremost, I'm curious about this. We hosted a General Strike Summit at RBN about 3 years ago. And we basically had a series of panels for people to discuss why we need a general strike. Now, that was 3 years ago, but the question is still there. People are still asking, like, do we need to have a general strike in this country? So I'm curious, when did this movement in particular start, General Strike US?
Absolutely. So the General Strike US started in 2022 by some of our comrades, two friends in New York, shortly getting the website in motion after Roe versus Wade was overturned. So ever since then, back in 2022, ever since then, up until now, We are currently in phase 1, which is basically us building our base, trying to strengthen our mass line. We are trying to organize 3.5% of the population to engage and sustain participation. So that's basically us gaining the numbers, making sure we're organized, we understand the needs of our communities and whatnot. And we'll be in phase 1 up until we reach 6 million individuals on a strike card. And that's when we'll move into phase 2.
So it sounds like you have a plan. I'm going to go to Dallin. What would you say is the purpose of General Strike US, and why do you feel we need a general strike?
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to pick just one reason. There's very many, but I think for me personally, it all comes down to just the fact that capitalism is unsustainable right now. You see it every day with all the ways that people are being exploited, and how difficult it is for all types of people, but especially marginalized communities, to live their lives. For me, this movement is really about trying to actually create a political tool that can help us decenter the profit motive from where it is inside of the heart of our economy, the heart of our politics, the heart of our society right now. And it's causing just so much damage because that is the one thing that everything is based on and focused around, is this profit motive. For us, our movement is going to try and put people back into the center and put the planet back into the center of what we're doing and how we live our lives. So, yeah, our purpose is to kind of build awareness, build community, build the tools to strike back and heal all of these relationships between kind of where we live, where we work, and our environment, as well as the communities around us.
And what would a general strike look like to you? I'm going to go to Jaden.
So a general strike, to me, right, we all have very different opinions about what it is. But at the general strike, it's not simply a bourgeois strike. We're not out here picket fence, better wages, better working conditions. A revolutionary strike is what we're trying to do. And a general strike, in the ways we're trying to do it as, incorporates community building, incorporates mutual aid networks, and incorporates all of the functions and structures which house us, feed us, and make our collective purposeful to the community at hand, rather than, of course, than what we see in corporate America, inside of this capitalist system, and where we are exploited out of our labor instead of appreciated. So a strike, to me, looks something revolutionary. It is something that we are to take serious and embody if we are to truly stand up against our oppressive system and state.
That's interesting. I want to go back to your website really quick because I want to show everyone something I noticed here as well. You have something called a strike card, and I want to talk a little bit about this. It says signing a strike card is one of the most important steps you can take in ensuring the success of the general strike. You will receive important email and SMS updates, reply stop to opt out. The general strike is 100% grassroots organization, and your data will never be shared or sold. By providing your telephone number and email, you consent to receiving calls and text messages, etc. Let's talk a little bit about the strike card here, if we can. Let's go to back to Day.
Absolutely. So the strike card serves many purposes. It's a great tool for us to stay organized. So the first purpose of it is being a physical manifestation, representation of our unity, of that diversity and strength in numbers. Next is also a means to measure our progress. We're able to analyze, how many people is ready to take action, where, in our different regions and whatnot. And last but not least, is really just a morale. For so long, people feel isolated, they feel alone. They may feel crazy for thinking, they don't like the system. And it's just, a boost of morale just to see over 3,000 people that feel like you, that are ready, to demonstrate solidarity with you. So it definitely has many reasons, many purposes that we utilize it. If we are going to organize a movement, a strike, we have to stay organized.
Okay, and when we talk about general strike with this particular organization, it appears you have different chapters in different cities. Is that how this works?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Oh,
can help answer about that.
yes.
So, our organization system is flexible. We have people at the national level who help create tools and help get chapters started when they're ready to form. But they can form at any level that a member is comfortable stepping up to volunteer for. So, for my own personal story, there was no one really organizing at the Oregon level. So, I stepped in to try and help get conversations started there. But as people come in, and if they are willing to volunteer to help lead chapters at a city level, we'll help that happen too, even if there wasn't a leader at the state level as well. So wherever someone's able to come in and help out, we'll try and get that started growing organically wherever we are able to do that.
Okay. I guess one of the questions I have is like we've talked about different movements on this show. Workers Strike Back has been on this show. Of course, there were organizers to March for Medicare for All. They've been on this show. Like there have been a number of different organizations that have come on. And one of the things I always ask is, what are the demands? What are the demands of General Strike US?
I can help answer that one. We have a broad list of demands. So, formally, we will establish demands by heads of industries and titans in their little areas, specifically people who come from these disenfranchised groups, marginalized groups, individuals who feel the oppression the most. Formally, we will craft demands at that point in phase two. Right now, we have demands. We're pretty broad, right? We want to, of course, raise and exceed minimum wages to a living condition. We want, of course, land back. There are many different values and demands that we can advocate for now, pretty much general as part of the general strike. But as we hone into that 6 million into phase two, we will craft more specific demands, but it's not run of the mill. We are definitely advocating for left leaning policies, pretty much communal policies that advocate for social development rather than, internal private corporate development.
Okay, so right now, again, for those who are just watching, we're on phase one. So we haven't entered that phase yet. What
Yeah,
would you say are the values of General Strike US?
I can go into that again too. So we have three. There are three Ds to our values. We've encompassed a lot of values, but the three Ds include decentralization, dissent, and diversity. And I'll go from top down to explain them just a little bit more. So decentralization at the core of organizing GSUS is to state that we are not following any sort of leader. We ourselves, as individuals, are leaders in our own capacity. So whatever we can do and however we can, we will lead, amongst all of us towards the direction, towards that, community building. So we're not following a single point that leads us in a direction. We're kind of all leading each other by sharing and giving resources in this decentralized network. So we're all both reliant and need each other to make this network happen. Dissent comes from this acknowledgement of the capitalist system and the reason why we are striking. We want to dissent away from this system. So and it's intentional as well. We're not just walking off aimlessly away from this mode of production, not having a plan in action. We are crafting this plan in our part of dissent away from the system, decentralized. And of course, we can't do that without every background and group and the diversity part of our values. So we have, a general plan, we have a set of sort of structure, but the substance of which is diverse, right? We accept everyone and, pretty much everyone who is here on the left or, has anti-capitalist values here to organize. So we're pretty much diverse, dissenting at the system and decentralized. That's pretty much our three values as the group.
So you're trying to get at least 6 million people to sign the strike card before you move to phase two.
Yes.
Do you know how many people have signed already?
If you actually go back to the website you were on where you were looking at the strike card, if you scroll down a little bit, anyone can always see updated in real time the number of people who are willing to stand in solidarity with us. And so you'll see at this point right now, we've got over 323,000 members who have committed to actually striking with us when we are able to get there. And we'll reconfirm these numbers, and especially at local levels too, when we are getting closer to actually finalizing things. But yeah, this is always something that brings a little bit of hope to me, just that there's so many people who would already be willing to put their bodies and their jobs potentially on the line to make a change like this that's so important actually happen.
Okay. And how are you going about promoting this organization?
Any and everywhere. social media has been a tool. We started doing online activism first, but now that we have more volunteers on board, now that we have more individuals stepping up, we are experiencing a boom, a growth in our chapters. So we are trying to encourage more boots on the ground organizing. We are trying to do more info tabling, of course, supporting local strikes, boycotts, and initiatives, but also just getting more involved with our communities. Our chapters are the eyes and ears in the streets. They are here to help the people make a clear critique of the system and formulate a clear strategy on how to rectify the problems in our material world.
Can I make a recommendation? I think one of the best ways to promote this organization is by going on 2 different shows. I think like that's one of the best ways to get the word out about your organization. I know you're on here, but there are other shows that are larger. Like, for example, have you reached out to other independent media?
We reach out to a lot of groups, and sometimes members already have connections with those. But yeah, we're open to receiving help from the community. If you want to see this movement grow and you want us to connect with other larger platforms, we'd be happy to take the time to engage with those people, see what we can do to make those connections happen. If this is something that people want to see, these are things that we can do and we can make happen. Yeah. We're doing a
Yeah,
lot of on the ground flyering, but yeah, things like this too also help share the word.
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think this is a great question from David. Do you guys have a plan to help those fired from their jobs, or will you just say sorry and do nothing for them? If I'm not mistaken, is that where the mutual aid part will come in?
Yeah. So I
Absolutely.
can tap into that. Oh, sorry, Dave, if you wanted to take that.
We can both tackle it, Jaden. It's our favorite. But I think
Yeah.
that we have to just emphasize the importance, that this is not, like a petition that you sign. Like when you sign a strike card, you are definitely encouraged. This is a team effort. This is a collective effort. We have to establish that infrastructure. So at all times, we take a lot of ideology from the Black Panther Party and all their practices. We should be coming up with these survival programs, these services, pending, this strike, pending this movement, to meet the people's needs before and after this strike. Jaden?
And then so if we're talking, when I get this question a lot and I love answering this because this comes from I want to say a misunderstanding of what the general strike is, what we do, but a general understanding of the current structure at which we are now. So when you go on strike, of course, there is a real, consequence. You may be fired, you may, get laid off or something may happen to your job. The general strike US and what we're advocating for a strike is to strike within your means, right? To do what you can for the development of this movement in the capacity of which you're able to. So if you can't quit your job or you can't go on strike, but you can spread the word about it. You can talk to your neighbors about the general strike. You may not be able to do as much as which you may want to, but never put yourself in jeopardy. We never want anyone to put themselves in danger financially or physically for the name of the strike. Do as much as you can within your capacity. So no one should be getting fired for anything that we do, because that's not what we're advocating for. We're advocating for a system and mutual aid networks to support the existing structure and strike to attack and address these questions. And one of the structures and programs that we're implementing is the time bank program. So the idea of a time bank program is to, utilize time instead of money to give and exchange resources. And this is where we can, develop a backbone and mutual aid structure to the strike. So let's say someone unfortunately does get fired for participating in a strike, right? We can't predict everything, but the utilization of a time bank allows people to not use money to give and receive resources, but utilize their time. So time bank is just one of those programs that we are trying to implement and such, but that's the backbone of our mutual aid, and we don't want anyone to get fired for doing the work that we do.
Yeah. And I'll add one last point as well, which is we are developing a diverse set of tools, and we want these tools to be able to be shared and implemented by the chapters as much as possible and as locally as possible. We have teams of members who are also working on coming up with strike fund guidance for people who may lose their jobs, or if they did receive hardship during the strike, to be able to support them as well. And so we're going to come up with that guidance and try to make it very transparent and accountable so that local communities and local strikers can group their resources together and really get it to those people who need it most when this actually happens. So yeah, we're trying to develop these diverse sets of tools. Sometimes members come up with new tools we haven't even thought of yet. We're also making connections and building coalitions with existing mutual aid networks within all of our local areas as well. We encourage all the state chapter leaders to really search out and talk to these mutual aid groups and start supporting them now, which is another way we can also share our message by saying, hey, we're here to help the community with surviving under capitalism now, but you can also join us in this bigger project of getting ready for the general strike.
And I want to mention this as well. I noticed you do have a list of partners here. I just want to show some of them. 360 Collective, Black Panther Party of Washington State, Blackout Strike, California National Party, Claim Our Space Now, Democracy at Work. This is Professor Wolf's organization. Democracy Unlimited, Empire 13, and the list goes on and on. So these partners, can you explain a little bit? Are they a part of General Strike US, or are they basically co-signing what you're doing?
So we understand, we can't do this alone, and no one group, no one individual is going to be able to accomplish this. We understand that our oppressors definitely are in coalitions, fearless coalitions, and so it would be in our best interest to do the same thing. So we are growing a coalition. We are trying to align ourselves with groups, individuals who can possibly contribute to strike needs, strike demands. So a lot of those groups cater to a lot of those needs, a lot of those demands, and we would love to, grow this coalition. For food sovereignty, we would like to connect with more food cooperatives. We are interested in connecting with more land, housing cooperatives. Like all of these groups, all of these solutions are here. As Malcolm X say, we're not outnumbered, we're out organized.
Really interesting. One of the things I noticed, I have to ask this question because when I look at these, outside organizations, grassroots organizations, there are a lot of people that watch the show that are just kind of fed up with electoral politics, and they want to focus on what they can do outside of that. So I have to ask, is this organization tied to any political party?
No.
No.
So General Strike US is not a part of any party, really, because we are for the people, by the people, and the People Collective is not a political organization. We are just people and humans. All of us are volunteers. None of us are getting paid to do any of this. So really all of our labor and effort is for that purpose, that interest of the People Collective. So no, we're not affiliated with or are ourselves the political
I'll
organization.
say I wouldn't have even joined, I don't think, if it was in support of a political party.
Well, one more question I have for you as well is, if someone was interested in starting a chapter in their city, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, I can take that question. So we have a organization tool that we're using. Our main organization tools are Discord servers, and then we also have working groups within these servers that help connect people with members at their state levels or at local levels. But the national team is really the best starting point if people are not sure what exists in their area already and they'd like to find out. They can reach out to the people on the national level, and we can help connect them. Or if they're ready to start something and want to be a part of something, either as like a co-facilitator, or if they're willing to start something just on their own at first until others can join, we're happy to share those information and help them get advice and mentorship as they're starting their journey. You can be a person who's had plenty of experience and has contributed to other organizations in the past. You could also be someone who's brand new and has not been a part of organizing before, but is just wanting to learn and help and contribute. And we will take you as you are, and the experiences and knowledges and skills you may have to offer will help find a place for you for sure.
Okay. Well, I will say I like what you have here so far. I want to hear a little bit about the events that are coming up.
Yeah, so currently we're working on doing a May Day initiative. Our chapters are encouraged to support the May Day events that's going on May 1st. We'll be doing some info tabling. We are also trying to mix this with some type of mutual aid, even if it's not during that the week of May 1st, even if it's afterwards, so some type of mutual aid or service given back to the people. So that's being organized right now. We are also doing our monthly coalition meeting that is scheduled for April 26th. We typically hold those on Jitsi, but it's just to connect with new and pre-existing coalition members.
Okay. One thing that I would advise, and this is just a little piece of advice. When I first looked at the website, the big question I had was, what are the demands? Right. So I know you explained to me that's a part of phase two when you get at least 6 million people to sign the strike card, but more people would be willing to sign the strike card if they knew what they were signing up for. So if they knew what the demands were, more people probably would be willing to sign. Just a piece of advice, I would say. And then have you had the opportunity to reach out to other organizations like Workers Strike Back? I know I think, Darlin, you're in Washington State. Have you reached out to people like Shama Sawant or her organization Workers Strike Back as well? Because I'm seeing some similarities here in what you want and what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much for the points of advice. We do appreciate this, and we do try to modify and adapt our tools as we're going. I know that the list of strike demands, if anyone wants to see it, you can access it through the website. We would, I think, consider putting it on a more separate page so it's more accessible for people. But there is a way you can view a welcome packet that we have that goes into a lot more detail about the structure and values of our organization, as well as all of the demands. Jaden went through some of the ones that are on our welcome packet, but there is a link. There's a set of links on our website that will take you to like our Discord and our welcome packet and things like that. But yeah, I think making it more front and center is a very, very good idea. As far as connecting with specific organizations, there's a lot of organizations out there. We have outreach teams who are working on making these connections. We have people who are doing that in person too at local levels. So we are kind of approaching it both from the national end of things as well as from more local ends of things. So we can make anytime there is a personal connection we can make to an organization or a connection on a values level where we are both marching in the same direction towards the same goals. We want to link arms together and yes, be a part of that other organization if they're doing work you believe in, and if you already have actions you can take with them, keep doing that. If you can also be a part of General Strike US and tell people that this big event is going to come and could really make changes that we need to have happen in order to make long-term solutions to our situation and why everything is so hard right now, be a part of both of those things if you can. So we love telling people about these other organizations, but also having them be a part of ours too when they can.
All right, awesome. Thank you all so much. This is General Strike US. Thank you all so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us.
Bye. All right, guys, that was General Strike US. Again, Eric, if you can put the link to their website in the chat. They are organizing for a general strike. I pretty much like what they have like on their website. I do encourage though that I think if they have those demands need to be front and center, because I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times when I look at a website, I'm not really trying to look. I don't want to have to click on something to go to something else and go to something else. So people shouldn't have to search for demands. Demands should be front and center. And I think if they had that, I think more people would sign that strike card. But I think more people are going to be hesitant to sign it if they don't know what they're signing up for. So yeah, let's go to some of the comments here, and then we will get on to the other stories, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't done so, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And tonight's theme is changing history. Yes. Should be interesting conversation. Let's give a shout out to Janice Blue, who just became a Sabby member. Give Janice a big whoop whoop. Thank you, New York Varsity. I just saw Dave Smith and Douglas Murray debate on the Rogan podcast. Debate skills wise, this was an unfair fight. Smith decided to win on points when he could have won via second round KO. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but it's on my list. It's on my list to do this weekend to check that out. Thank you, James. Hi, Sabby. Still trying to join membership. If you're trying to become a member on the channel, typically the way it used to work is that when you click on the video, there is a pop-up that says, would you like to become a member of this channel? I don't know if YouTube still is doing that or not, but that's typically how people were able to become members on this channel. I'll look into that, James. Shout out to Miranda Rios for being a member for 2 months. Shout out to my comrade, Charlie Mack in the house. Mutual aid infrastructure and time, experience sharing, and working with other organizations is the way forward 100%. Thank you, Charlie. Charlie's a part of the Boston Mutual Aid chapter. Now we're going to go ahead and give a shout out to Sabby patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. You guys are doing the damn thing. Doing the damn thing. Doing the damn thing. Thank you to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Really do appreciate you. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also Sabsters. Don't forget about those guys that are called Sabbies. Yeah, we like them too. And of course, there are also members, ladies and gentlemen. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen on the ticker. They are with us at all times. And I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Jose Acosta, Shane Obano, Emily Sheety, and Christopher Ero. Thank you all so much and welcome. Dun, 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 dun. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, the theme tonight is changing history. This first story that we're going to get into, we're just sounding an alarm to everybody. There has been a new announcement from Homeland Security, and I think everybody needs to hear this, especially if you are on social media. In particular, if you are an international. Pay attention to this, folks. This is what is happening now with the DHS. The U.S. says it is monitoring immigrant social media for anti-Semitism. This is the big news that's breaking this week. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services has announced it will begin screening immigrant social media for evidence of anti-Semitic activity as grounds for denying immigration benefit requests. The screenings will affect people applying for permanent resident status, as well as foreigners affiliated with educational institutions. The policy will go into effect immediately. Yes, MBD, Ruh-roh is right. I want to explain to you how this is going to impact our economy, because I don't know if everybody went there. Check it out, man. The higher education institution in this country greatly depends on and relies on international students for admission. This is not to say that they don't take or, of course, admit domestic students. Of course they do. But I've worked at universities for over 10 years, and I've also worked in admissions, and I'm here to break it to you. A lot of these universities are not going to fare well if they do not have a certain amount of international applicants admitted to these universities, and I want to explain why. International students do not receive financial aid. That's only for domestic students. International students have to have something else, particularly those that are applying for undergrad. They have to be able to prove that they can pay, or their family members can pay, tuition for all 4 years. The universities are businesses. They do rely on that money that comes in, especially nowadays that the middle class is pretty much non-existent. More and more students are applying for financial aid or need financial aid to attend college. So this is something that could impact us economically, particularly the higher education institution, because they rely on that money. They rely on all these schools I worked at, Boston University, Harvard, Northeastern. Actually, I was grad assistant at Northeastern, but you know what I'm saying. MIT, especially, all of these universities, they rely on a certain percentage of international students because they can pay outright. Now, it's a little bit different when it comes to the PhD programs. PhD students receive stipend from the government. That's a little bit different. But we're looking at something that could actually shake up the higher education field. And I mention this because these schools have employees. I was one of them. And what that could mean is if these programs are not meeting their admission, quota, these universities, once again, could be looking at laying off people. And I saw it happen during the pandemic. People were laid off because guess what? Couldn't bring over some of the international students. So just to sound the alarm about that, ladies and gentlemen, but Homeland Security, this is going to be scary. In a statement issued Wednesday morning, the Department of Homeland Security said it will protect the homeland from extremists and terrorist aliens, including those who support anti-Semitic terrorism, violent anti-Semitic ideologies, and anti-Semitic terrorist organizations such as Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, or the Houthis. Now, let me explain to you how they can actually stretch this out, and it can apply to people that may just have like a Palestinian flag in their bio on their social media profile. Remember, there are some in this administration that consider even that Palestinian flag to be anti-Semitic. If the ADL were to push forward more rules around what they deem to be anti-Semitic, then that could mean that the Palestinian flag, they could see that as anti-Semitic. It could mean that just in a way, if you even said, I want the genocide to stop on social media, they could see that as anti-Semitic. There's no telling how far this can go. So you may not be an international student, but remember, it usually starts with one group first before it spreads to other groups. Also in this announcement, they went on to say there is no room in the United States for the rest of the world's terrorist sympathizers, and we are under no obligation to admit them or let them stay here. Now, that is coming from DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs there. And what this is showing you, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining, the U.S. says it is now monitoring immigrant social media for anti-Semitism. Like I said, they can start with them first, and then they can, transfer this over to those of us who are citizens. And I have never seen our government move this way for any other group. I have never seen our government move this way for any other group. Look how far they're willing to go to protect Israel. But it didn't start here. As I said, the theme is changing history. I just want to remind you what happened 3 years ago.
The federal government is launching a new effort to track down domestic extremists on social media. The Secretary of Homeland Security and the Attorney General both testified today before the Senate Appropriations Committee about a new program to analyze intel about security threats. NBC News correspondent Julia Ainsley joins us now. Julia, how exactly will this new DHS Intel initiative work?
Well, Morgan, it's the latest iteration of the same mission that actually started under the Obama administration, and that's to try to prevent domestic violent and just violent extremist attacks before they even begin. Under the Obama administration, it mainly focused on trying to interrupt people who might be convinced to join ISIS or a jihadi extremist ideology online. Now, because the threat has changed so much, this version, known as the Center for Prevention and Partnerships, will focus on primarily, at this point, looking out for those domestic violent extremists, which is what Secretary Mayorkas said is a persistent and lethal threat, the most persistent and lethal threat to the United States right now. And the Attorney General agreed with him. What's different about the way they're doing this program versus those under the Trump or Obama administrations is they have $77 million specifically set aside to disrupt, prevent, and look out for the disinformation that could lead to domestic violent extremism. This isn't as part of an effort to surveil anyone, arrest anyone simply for free speech. It's to try to prevent them from even getting to that point. A lot of this could come from community partnerships or even researchers and scholars who are studying this phenomenon and why it's so widespread in our culture right now.
Hey, NBC News viewers.
I had to show you that because that was from 3 years ago. Not exactly the same policy, but Donald Trump is adding on to a policy that Joe Biden had by now saying we're going to crack down on social media for those who are immigrants. He's just adding on to it. Notice in that video, she said it actually started under Barack Obama. So this is a continuation of something that started years ago, and now it's even worse than it was before. Now, of course, not everybody is in agreement with this. In fact, there are other Jewish organizations that have spoken out against it. I want to go ahead and bring this in here from Common Dreams. Thank you, Common Dreams. It says a Jewish group says Trump using Jews as an excuse to spy on social media posts of immigrants. One critic accused the administration of cynically claiming to be fighting anti-Semitism despite being the most openly anti-Semitic U.S. administration in history. A Jewish-led progressive advocacy group was among those expressing horror Wednesday at a new policy unveiled by the Trump administration as part of what it claims is a wide-scale effort to protect Jewish people from anti-Semitism, but which critics warn is itself anti-Semitic. Listen to this. They go into the decision there from Homeland Security. And I want you to hear what this person says here. It says that Bend the Arc, Jewish Action is an example of the administration using Jews as an excuse to move a cruel, anti-immigrant authoritarian agenda. This will not fight anti-Semitism, said the group. We refuse to be used this way. Goes on to say, effective immediately, that they are going to start targeting people, because that's really what this is, targeting people. It says that the agency cited Donald Trump's executive orders that he says are aimed at combating anti-Semitism, which have also been used to round up international students, deny them due process, and threaten them with deportation for speaking out against Palestinian rights. And one thing that I want to add, recent news that was just reported today, student Mahmoud Khalil, it has just been confirmed by a federal judge that he can be deported. That was announced Friday. So I just want people to understand how dangerous this is going to become. Remember when Matt Taibbi wrote about the Twitter files? He was on the show to talk about that a couple of times, actually. One of the big criticisms that Matt Taibbi had is that the US government was actually trying to police Twitter and the executives at Twitter, trying to tell them what they could or could not have on their platform. In particular, things like the Hunter Biden laptop story. So what we are seeing is a continuation of that. And I say continuation because I want people to understand this didn't start under Donald Trump. It started under Joe Biden, and they are now continuing it and adding other pieces to it. So you're seeing that both administrations are not pro-free speech. And that definition of anti-Semitism, they can change it to whatever they want. Like I said, some of these government officials like Marco Rubio, who actually said Mahmoud Khalil didn't do anything criminally wrong, he just didn't like his politics. That's how dangerous this has become. Regardless of what side you're on, you may not be in favor of the pro-Palestinian protests, but it's only going to come a time when there is a cause that you are in favor of, and they're going to crack down on that one. It goes on to say here, DHS did not specify what views expressed on social media could be used against anti-immigrant applying for benefits, but its approach to the State Department's Catch and Revoke program, targeting international students who have called for their schools to divest from Israel, suggests the agency won't simply be looking for immigrants who threaten the safety of Jewish people. So, Kate Ruin, the director of the Free Expression Project at the Center for Democracy and Technology, said that in addition to targeting people based on nothing more than their First Amendment protected expression, it will likely use error-prone automated tools to detect what it views as anti-Semitic activity. And this is one of the more dangerous parts, because we all know that technology is not perfect. We know that sometimes these tools can grab something that they think is one thing, but it's not. There are a number of my comrades that have had to deal with this with YouTube. There are a number of my comrades that had to do significant appeals because they were accused of saying something they didn't say because these little spiders that crawl across the website misread something. So this is dangerous territory. And I would hope nobody agrees with this. The government, our government that we have in this country is very much bought off. Very much bought off. And honestly, when we talk about changing history, what they're really trying to do here is they're trying to rewrite history. They're trying to make it so that we do not continue to know what Israel has done. This is the first step, ladies and gentlemen. What else do you think is coming next? Are they going to change the history books? Are they going to change the Bible? Think about it. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Tim, or Sparky, for this one about Tim. Tim Pool's blown Ben Shapiro and Netanyahu for so long he could start a leaf blower. Wow, wow, wow. Shout out to CM for being a member for 12 months. CM says 1 year, go Yankees. CM, you know I'm a Red Sox fan. You know I'm here for Red Sox. He's trolling me. Thank you, Sparky. Sabby, one of my brothers, was in higher education admissions for many years. He specialized in international students. He agrees with you. And thank you for this one. Go Ansar Allah, fight the power. Thank you for this one as well. Denazify Israel. And thank you for this one. F Israel. Thank you for this one as well. Anytime someone says Israel is our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think before Israel, we had no enemies in the Middle East. U.S. missionary John Sheehan. Shout out to Hardlands Media says censorship. Exactly. What's up, kid? Thank you, Sparky, for this one. Keep in mind, Israel has killed many more Americans than Iran. Remember the USS Liberty. And thank you, Courtney. It's all a continuation, just like Doge is just a rebranded continuation of Obama's USDS. There you go. There you go. Okay. And we're moving on to our next story. I think we're making pretty good time. I've been tracking my steps, and every now and then I just look at it to see. Because even I think if I move my feet, that still counts as a step. Does it? I don't know. It doesn't track like step 1, step 2. It'll just say 10 steps or add 20 steps. Anyway, let's get on to the next story. Again, the theme tonight is changing history. This is a story that I think has kind of snuck under the radar. I haven't seen people cover it yet, or many people cover it, but we're going to cover it here. It appears that now even the Smithsonian museums in DC may be in trouble. When we talk about changing history, we're talking about this. What Donald Trump is looking at doing now. Listen to this.
New reaction tonight after another bold move by President Trump, this time taking aim at the Smithsonian Institution. He says it's to restore truth and sanity to American history. Critics say he's trying to whitewash it. 7 News' Carl Willis tonight with both sides.
The Smithsonian Institution, the world's largest museum, education, and research complex, and a powerful draw for visitors like Talisha Bhatia.
There's the Indian Museum, the African American Museum, all the Smithsonian's. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's also the latest target of the Trump administration and the focus of an executive order that aims to remove what the administration considers anti-American ideology. Certain narratives on the country's racial history. Part of the executive order reads, quote, "Over the past decade, Americans have witnessed a concerted and widespread effort to rewrite our nation's history, replacing objective facts with a distorted narrative driven by ideology rather than truth."
So, long story short, what this means is that Donald Trump is now looking at some of those museums in Washington, D.C., in particular, like the Native American Museum, the African American Museum of History, which is my favorite museum there. And no, it's not my favorite just because I'm Black. I just think they did a really good job with that museum. Those in particular, because it sets a narrative that, hey, these people may be marginalized. There was harm that was done to these groups of people. But there's one museum that he's not looking at, and that's the Holocaust Museum. I hope everybody is paying attention to what is happening here. Like, this is insane. Let's continue.
The order also seeks to remove recognition of the achievements of trans women in the American Women's History Museum.
I feel like that's overstepping their boundaries of what the government, because it should be open and equal to everybody.
The executive order specifically mentions the Smithsonian American Art Museum, as well as the National Museum for African American History and Culture, for having divisive race-centered ideology. But some say this is an attempt to erase history.
It really hurts your generation, because your history is who you are.
And more controversy over a separate executive order this week.
This is only the latest in a pattern of attacks on our ability to control our own affairs.
The order would create a surge of law enforcement in public areas, maximize immigration enforcement, and help DC's crime lab get its accreditation.
We have a lot of good things happening in our country.
Patrice Sultan with DC Justice Lab says this makes her feel unsafe.
I actually see it as quite dangerous to keep doubling down on policies we know have failed just to score political points with people who don't even live here.
Carl Willis, 7 News.
Okay. Now, I have a little bit more detailed information about that I do want to get into. Nini's right. It's not ideology. It's what happened. Right. But this is what I was trying to tell you guys about the power of the Zionist lobby. This is why when people kept telling me, don't talk about Israel, that has nothing to do with us right here. This is what I was trying to tell you, why that lobby, AIPAC, and also Kufi, these are incredibly powerful lobbies. And for Black Americans, like, we don't have that. We just don't. We don't have a Black PAC, right? So let's go into the details here. And I want to show you, because a lot of people are not talking about this. Trump targets a slavery removal from the National Museum of African American History and Culture. So this is the museum in DC. I've been there. I know a lot of people that have been, right? So if you haven't been, you should go. I really do think they did a really good job. It's free. Like a lot of the Smithsonian museums, they're free. Go check it out. I have been to one exhibit there, and that took me 3.5 hours. There's multiple exhibits. So one in particular, the one that I went to, is the one that he has a problem with. It's the exhibit that takes you back in time. You get onto an elevator, the elevator goes down, and it goes all the way back to the 1800s, all the way back, way, 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 way back. And you start at the bottom and you make your way around and you walk through all these different ramps until you get right back up to the top. So you're basically walking through moments in history. And it starts with the slave trade and it follows all that all the way up until present day. And that's what he has a problem with. Why is it that everybody else's history in this country can be told, but ours is a problem? This is a problem. For Black people who voted for Trump, are you okay with this? Let's continue on. When I say they did a really good job with this museum, like they really did a good job with this museum. Black people are not going to stand for this. That's coming from Nicole Hannah-Jones, the author of the 1619 Project. She is responding to the reports that Trump is targeting slavery section in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. The museum's slavery facts and substantiated artifacts of the 250 years of enslavement of Africans in America, curated by historians, are the bullseye for Trump administration. I think that this is a sign of deep sickness to think that you could go to the National Museum of African American History and Culture and feel the need to erase how Black people got here. And this is another thing I want to mention. They want to tell a story to make it seem like we immigrated here. They want that part just gone. Oh, no. Let's not talk about that. No. They don't want people to see what really happened. And if you go to the museum, it's not whitewashed the way it was in your history textbooks. So prepare yourself. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that ahead of time. There will be images that you see that will make you uncomfortable. They're not in your history books. They don't want that. Now, Nicole Hannah-Jones has her issues. She's a shit lib. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Don't get me twisted. She is, and I have many criticisms of her. She came after Cornel West because he wasn't running in the Democratic Party. Like, so don't get it twisted. Like, she talks a lot about like Black history and that's kind of her thing, but she's also a shit lib. Let's continue on. It goes on to say here, to erase or minimize the slavery and freedom part of that story is to create a fantasy of how we got here. We literally would not be in the United States without slavery. According to the sources, Smithsonian officials are secretly strategizing to stave off presidential actions for Republican support to preserve the history. Smithsonian officials hope that once they have secured Republican support, they can present the attempt to save the artifacts and museum integrity to President Trump. Let me pause here for a second. Boy, I tell you, I really got to ask for Black Republicans, how do you feel about this? Like, you cannot erase the history of my people. You can't. And they don't want it there. By the way, this is a museum. It goes on to say here, and this is the portion I was talking about. In the lower portion, the museum takes tourists on a historic timeline journey from American slavery to Jim Crow, the civil rights movement, with the casket of Emmett Till and simulations of the Montgomery bus boycott. among other noted moments in American history. We cannot be a free democratic society when you have the most powerful people in the world who will take control of a history museum and force them to tell a lie. That's Nicole still speaking there. Here's a picture here of George W. Bush. And I want you to hear what George W. Bush did. President George W. Bush signed H.R. 3491, the National Museum of African American Act, in December of 2023, authorizing the creation of a Smithsonian Institution Museum, African Americans' Legacy of Africa. And then it goes on to mention Obama opened the museum in 2016. Meanwhile, the Republican Golden Age President Donald Trump is focused on whitewashing historical and proven facts about African Americans, calling it ideologically unacceptable. Recently, presidential directives for the National Park Service have removed references to underground tubmen from the unsafe phase Black-White cooperation. Harriet Tubman's picture was prominent as she was the most famous Underground Railroad conductor. The website's face now features commemorative stamps of various civil rights leaders and a text including Black-White cooperation. Jones was emphatic that this is the sign of the people who are deeply insecure and untruthful and want to erase the various foundations of this country. So as you can see, there's George W. Bush there signing. And they really want to, like, I just can't, you can't make this up, ladies and gentlemen. You can't make this up. And people are just pretending like this is not a big, you know what I mean? It's like, he's not trying to erase the history of the Confederacy. This is insane. Absolutely insane. And more people need to speak out about it. It can't just be Black people speaking out against this. Now, that's just the article about the African American History Museum. They're also targeting the Native American History Museum. As if we have no history. They don't want us to have a history. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to see it. What did I tell you before about the white minority? I told you that if the focus shifts to Black Americans and we are the priority, then the white minority is no longer front and center. That means these organizations like the ADL, APAC, even Kufi, that means that they are no longer a priority. So they're willing to even go to pretend like, we just woke up here one day. Changing history in 2025. Let's go to the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Move this one here. Thank you, Peter. Oh, is this about the steps? I just put my step counter on my dog and send it outside while I drink a beer and watch Sabby. I was wondering if people put them on their pets. Tia said, Sabs, yep, it counts depending on how sensitive your pedometer is. Thank you, Calvin. They're going to start making us wear an armband with a cross to mark us as second-class citizens like they did in 1930s Germany. Thank you, Joseph. Dems will just blame the third-party voters for this again. You're right. And they're still doing that. They can't do math. Thank you, Sparky. President Trump wouldn't have a clue whether history was true or not. It's just not something he's interested in. I wonder what POS has his ear on the History Museum issue. Probably the ADL. Probably the ADL. And thank you for the super sticker, Regine. Thank you so much. That's probably where it's coming from, ladies and gentlemen. Black Rhino says, this is why FBAs need laws to protect us from descendants of Confederates. They won't leave us alone. It's crazy stuff, man. Thank you, James. Ask the Native Americans. History repeats itself when you're ignorant to it. And thank you. All right. Thank you for the comment on Rockfin. Roger Meadows. Why have we allowed the government to own our history museums anyway? We should be the one who own our history and no one else. Maybe this is an opportunity for us as a community to purchase and own as a freedmen-owned consumer cooperative. That's a really good point. Really good point. I mean, it basically goes to show you that you really can't rely on the federal government when it comes to your history. You just can't. We can't count on them, right? I think Roger has a good point. It's crazy, though. Crazy and wild. And for all of that news, we have some good news. It's time for announcements. And my comrade, JB, he gave me permission to share it. So I want to share this news here. Huge announcement here from JB, ladies and gentlemen. This is really good news. I found out earlier today. Check it out.
Well, I'm back in the hospital again, but it's not for what you think. You know, the universe works in very interesting ways, and I am very happy. Like, I'm actually happy to be here, which is crazy. But that's because I got the call, and I am scheduled to get a kidney transplant in the morning.
Yay! I know the sound's a little low, but JB's announcement is that he found out he's scheduled to get a kidney transplant. Guys, this is a big deal. He got a donor. I spoke to him earlier today, and he's like, I'm on my way to Tampa to the hospital. You guys know, if you've ever had someone experience or go through this, it's not easy, right, to get a donor. You're on a list, and JB was able to get to the top of the list, and before he knew it, yeah.
So yes, I'm here for my transplant. Got my IV and everything, and I'm going to be changing into my gown soon. But just wanted to let you guys know what's going on. I finally got approved for a transplant. I got the call this morning, and it's a beautiful feeling. It's after 2:30 right now, and so, and gosh, in about 18 hours, I'll be going into surgery. So, look, I just want to give a big thank you to everybody. Thank you to all the people who have supported me. Thank you to everybody who has been rooting for me. Thank you to, all my comrades at RBN. Thank you to my family. Thank you to my boyfriend, Tony. Thank you to all the activists that have surrounded me, the organizers who have helped me to be able to learn more. I just want to thank you all. It's been a very exhausting day. Adrenaline was on high. They literally had to tell me to calm down while I was at dialysis because my heart was pounding. I was crying. It's a lot, but it's going to be okay. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay. And I just want you all to know to just keep being the best version of yourself, no matter what. And try to, like I always say, leave the world better than you found it, because that's what's going to save us. Compassion is going to save us. And that's one of the things I believe in the most. You save us. We save us. Take care.
All right. So give it up for JB, you guys. I'm so happy for him. So proud of him that he got the transplant. Like I said, It's not easy to do. JB actually is in the chat. He said over 109,000 people are waiting for organ transplants in the US, over 90,000 for kidneys alone. So there you guys go. I mean, it's not easy to get a transplant. So I'm so happy for him. And for those wondering, like, what is the significance of this? Well, once JB gets the kidney transplant, he doesn't have to go to dialysis anymore. So that's a big thing. And I'll let JB talk more and more about that. But to not have to go to dialysis 3 times a week, it's a life-changing thing. So congrats to JB. Yeah. Let's get the comment on Rumble, I think. Yeah. Woohoo. All right. Thank you, Wild Rose. The attempts to overwrite history is a backlash for the libs attempting to do the same, tearing down statues of Lee, etc. Interesting. We're going to drop the beat for JB, guys. We're going to drop the beat. Congratulations to you, JB. Congratulations. And we'll drop the beat for JB. Woo! Dance with me. Dance with me. Yo, baby. Yo, baby. Woo! Again, we're very, very, very happy for you, JB. And very happy, and good luck tomorrow. Yeah, some good news, man. Some good news. And now we're going to go to some funny ass news because this is hilarious. So there was a panel on CNN that went a little crazy. It didn't start out that way. This panel consisted of Michael Singleton, Tiffany Cross, Scott, I always forget Scott's last name. And Abby Phillips is hosting the panel. It's her panel. And the question that I ask is, as the host, why did Abby Phillips allow this panel to get out of hand? So we'll start with this clip. This is actually the more mild part, I think, because it gets even wilder and crazier later on. Here we go.
The executive order here's what it says about Chris Krebs. Krebs, through CISA, falsely and baselessly denied that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. That is in a presidential executive order, almost as if Bigfoot was real. What is going on?
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be with you. I think this is probably one of the most dangerous things that we've seen from him. And we've seen a lot of craziness, but this is now taking the department and completely weaponizing against 2 people who just disagreed with him. One who told the truth and was involved as a witness in the congressional inquiry, and then somebody else who has said some things about him. The problem is we're back to now what he complained about throughout the campaign and his presidency, and that was that the Justice Department had somehow been weaponized. And now you see him essentially given a mandate and a directive by way of this presidential order to the department to move forward.
He signed 2 executive orders ordering investigations, weaponizing his Justice Department against people who just disagree with him. How do you justify that?
I mean, look,
Okay. Now she's asking this question to Michael, right? So Michael has been on this show recently, actually. He was on my show. Michael, he's conservative, but Michael is pretty nice. Like, he's a pretty chill, nice dude, okay? For the most part. But they are not going to treat him this way. Like the way they came after Michael, more so Tiffany Cross, I have questions. That's the weird part. Watch this.
Politically, my advice to the president on this one would be continue to focus on strengthening the economy. You got to figure out a way to bring down cost. Keep doing what you're doing as it pertains to immigration. We need to increase chip manufacturing within the United States. There are several political things that I think that he needs to do.
All right, hold on. Okay.
So
all right, Chair Michael, I get it. Yes, he should focus on the economy.
Yeah, he should.
But what do you think about the fact that he's targeting his political enemies using executive orders and telling his Justice Department?
But we are focused on it, Chair Michael, and you just said,
Can I answer?
Pause. Why is Tiffany Cross speaking for Abby Phillips? Why is I don't get this at all. Everybody else at the table, for the most part, is pretty chill. Like, okay, she's talking to Michael Singleton. Why does Tiffany Cross insert herself in that part of the discussion when Abby Phillips is there and she is present? And if Abby Phillips wanted to, she can speak for herself and say, well, I don't feel like you answered my question. But Tiffany comes in to play Captain Save-A-Ho. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird. And it's kind of annoying. Let's continue. Good grief.
No, wait a minute. Wait, you have not answered. But I did answer. I just didn't answer the way you wanted me to answer. You don't get to dictate my comments to my response on this show.
Your comments are not directed to the issue.
No, yes, they were, because my response was the focus should be.
Hang on a second.
About this not being in a third.
Is Tiffany Cross Abby's bodyguard? Like, I don't understand this at all. like it literally went from 0 to 10 because Tiffany took it there. It was calm. She took it there. Ay.
Tiffany, one second.
Go ahead, Tiffany. Go ahead.
I mean, listen, Michael, you're a friend of the show. You're my friend. Please answer the question.
I answer the question the way I want.
No
one's going to dictate the way I answer questions on this show. You may not like the way I answered the question, but I gave an answer. No, I don't like that. We're not going to do dictating reply the way I want you to reply. Then just don't ask me a question if you don't like my response. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Michael, you don't get to.
Do we not live in a democracy now? I mean, we talked a lot about a democracy tonight. I guess not on this show.
You don't get to just change the subject to avoid having to say something that might be perceived as negative about Donald Trump.
No, Abby, you just didn't like my answer to your question.
Well, that's what it seems like. If you were a politician, a regular person on the street would say, well, that sounds like spin to me.
No, you asked a question.
Because it does sound like
my
spin.
Response to your question was, instead of doing this, the president should be focused on X, Y, and Z. That is an answer to the question.
When I said this is why it's so dangerous, and this is an example of why it's so dangerous, and that is because nobody wants to speak out against it. You know, we've been waiting for Republicans, whether it be in Congress or wherever they are, to come up and actually say that we're not going to let Trump's power go unchecked. And when he does something wrong, something illegal, something outside the bounds of the history and the department, they sit quiet.
Is it illegal? Do you believe what he did is illegal?
Absolutely.
Why is it illegal?
If you read the Justice Department manual, one of the things it talks about, actually, there's a whole section on whether or not the White House can have direction or communication for a prosecution. That's in there today. Frankly, I'm surprised they didn't scrub it yet, but it's actually in there. They're not allowed to do that. The reason is because you have to keep the department to be completely nonpartisan. That's the charging decision.
You don't think that the head of the executive branch can have law enforcement priorities?
I think when you call and say go after a political enemy, that's illegal and wrong. And I think the tide always turns in the.
So I'm going to need for people to know, I really wish for some of these panels, they brought on people that were experts, like maybe have someone there that is well informed about that law so they can say, I know this is illegal because said law. But for him to say, I think, I need you to know, man. I need you to know for real.
Pendulum swings here. When the Democrats are back in the White House, I imagine the Republicans are going to scream bloody murder if the president, the Democratic president, calls the department and says, go after, let's go after the Trump kids and see what happens.
I mean, I'm curious, are you suggesting that you don't think that it's wrong to go after political enemies?
Here's what I think. I think the security clearance, let me just address the order.
I'm going to have to do the same thing I just did to Michael, in fairness to my friend over there. Because my question to you was, do you think that it is right or wrong to go after, for the president to use the Justice Department to go after his political enemies?
Why does Scott look different to me for whatever reason in this panel? I don't know if maybe he parted his hair differently. Like, it looks like he slimmed down. I don't know if he looks more muscular or what, but Scott, all of a sudden in this particular panel, he looks different to me. Maybe it's the haircut.
I think it is fine for the president to express law enforcement priorities. I think that the Department of Justice should exercise the same judgment that they would exercise on anyone else as it relates to whether someone should be criminally investigated. But here's what I believe about the order in total. The security clearances, fine. There's far too many people with security clearances. I don't have a problem when they take them away. Reviewing access and dissemination of information, perfectly fine, because we do know some oversteps occurred. Looking at whether the government was involved in censorship, which we know they were, perfectly fine. But I think
he's talking about censorship of his lie. He's
well, there were
alleging.
other issues.
Hold on,
issues
Scott.
related to.
So the problem that I have with this conversation is I feel like it's somewhat disingenuous because both parties have done this. Both administrations have done this. Joe Biden did this, went after his political enemies, and Donald Trump is going after his political enemies. And I didn't hear this conversation on this panel on Abby's show about this when Joe Biden did it. You know what I mean? So we have to be consistent, but they're not going to do that because, again, like I said, it leans more one way than the other.
He is alleging that CISA censored his lie that the election was stolen. It is not true that the election was stolen. Chris Krebs told the truth, and now he's being targeted by the government with an executive order.
Right.
I guess it shouldn't be, I don't think it should be hard to just say, this is not what the government should be doing. This is not what the president should be doing. Because if the shoe, to Michael's point, were on the other foot, as you claimed that it was, you thought that was a huge scandal.
Again, I think I think the president should be able to express his views about these issues, but I think the Department of Justice ought to exercise the same judgment that it would use on any other kind of investigation. Now, what these guys did and whether it deserves a criminal investigation, I don't know. You're a lawyer, I'm not. But I do know this, that like in the case of Miles Taylor, was working in the government anonymously, obviously disseminating information publicly that he should not have been doing.
Like what?
Well, I mean, he was anonymously writing pieces for the New York Times and stating publicly that he was trying to undermine the government of the United States that he was supposedly working for.
What did he disseminate that he was legally not allowed to disseminate?
Great thing to find out. He was a high-ranking position at the Department of Homeland Security. What did he have?
He wrote an op-ed.
What did he have access to?
He wrote an op-ed.
What did he disseminate to people you don't know about?
He wrote an op-ed and he wrote a book. So what's the allegation?
I think anybody who held a high-ranking position in a Homeland Security department like he did, we know what they did publicly. I'd love to know what he did privately.
They're not allowed to talk about their experiences when they leave government? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm saying that he clearly used his position to try to undermine the sitting president of the United States when he had it. I know what he did publicly now. I don't know what he did privately.
Okay,
I think it's worthy of investigation.
And this is the media that is supposed to be the real news, right? It gets crazier. Like that's just one part of it. Then there is this particular part where there's an argument between Tiffany Cross and Scott Jennings about China. Peep this.
Reality that we are dependent on so many things to come out of our biggest adversary in the world. They are the enemy, and we should not be dependent on them.
But no, they are not our.
So I don't, you guys know how I feel about this with foreign policy. Scott Jennings has been brainwashed to believe that China is our enemy. If anything, a lot of these other countries can point to us and say, we're the real enemy. We're the ones that are destroying these countries. We're the ones that have 800 bases all over the world. It's us, really, if there were to be an enemy to point to. That being said, China is not your enemy. Just because another country is doing better than you economically, and partially part of that is your fault because you send jobs over there. No, that does not make them our enemy. We have to be very careful about the rhetoric of our international buds, or as they would put it, foes. We have to be very careful about that. China is doing very well economically because China likes to make shit, and we don't. We didn't continue to keep manufacturing here in the United States. Even some of the things that say made in America, the materials come from China or Mexico, somewhere else. So Scott Jennings, he's still brainwashed that China is our enemy. No, it's not. You know who the real enemy is? The real enemy is the billionaire class. The real enemy are the donors, the people who are donating billions and billions to these politicians. Those are the real enemies. The real enemies are the people that don't want to give you paid leave. The real enemies are the people who don't want you to have health care. That's the real enemy. But Scott Jennings' job is to continue to push the China bad, America great narrative. Now, Tiffany comes in and says, well, we need to figure out how to work with them. I agree that we do need to work with China. We shouldn't be working against them. We need to figure out how to work with them. But it's the way that Tiffany did it. It's the way that she comes in. And then this happens. Watch this. Watch how she
to come out of our biggest adversary in the world. They are the enemy, and we should not be dependent on them.
But no, they are not our enemy. They're our biggest trading partner. And if we
They've got rare earth minerals and you don't.
They're the enemy.
Right. But
I'm sorry, this guy is funny. Watch this.
Many things to come out of our biggest adversary in the world. They are the enemy, and we should not be dependent on them.
But no, they are not our enemy. They're our biggest trading partner. And if we
They've got rare earth minerals and you don't.
I love it because they've got rare earth minerals and you don't. I love it. But it's true. He's right. Like they have minerals that we don't have, that we need. I created the video the other day where I was telling you guys, like they cut off important minerals that we were getting from them because of the tariff war, right? So this guy is hilarious to me, the way that he said it. But he's right.
Right. But listen, but like it or not, sure, Michael, they are our biggest trading partner. And if we were to manufacture iPhones here, iPhones would cost $3,500. The American people are not going to tolerate that. We have one of the highest standards of working conditions here. I don't think that we can say, forget you, China. They literally.
Okay. So you're okay. Hold on, sure, Michael.
That part, I think people may not understand. I think Tiffany is a little animated about it. But I think people need to understand that when you say, let's just make all of those products here, those products are going to cost more because we don't have a lot of the materials, or we don't have those minerals that they have there to produce some of those products. See, this is the part that I think people oftentimes do not get into. When you say, let's just make everything here. Okay, great. That means we need to make sure that all the materials that we use to create these products is also made here. That also means that the machines that are used in a lot of these factories have to also be made here in the United States, and they're usually not. Manufacturing should have never left the United States. And I'm clear about this. Like, I just don't understand, you think about how when there was more of a thriving middle class in this country, part of those people they're able to make, I would say decent money. We're able to be homeowners working in factories. But then somebody said, let's get greedy. It's cheaper to make these parts. It's cheaper to get the materials from other countries. Let me lay off all of these people. It's crazy when you think about it.
So you're okay. You're okay if we continue to put our own economic and national security future in the hands of our biggest enemy, because effectively they use slave labor to build stuff, and that makes it better for us. That is terrible.
I am 100%
terrible.
not okay.
Why is he calling them our biggest enemy? You know what I mean? Like, you see the narrative there? Don't put that in their hands. They're our biggest enemy. We're the biggest enemy. It's us. I can't understand it. These talking heads, like on these shows, this is nothing propaganda over and over again. And they wonder why more people are watching YouTube posts. This is why, just nothing propaganda. But this is when things get, did I finish? Oh, let me finish this one. We'll get to the crazy part.
They use slave labor to build stuff, and that makes it better for us. That is terrible.
I am 100% not okay with that, but I'm dealing in the reality of what is.
Do you want to change reality that we are dependent?
Okay, let's get to the third part of this. It's interesting he mentioned slave labor. We have slave labor here. When you look at the wages in the United States, think about it, fam. When you think about people who are making minimum wage, I would consider that to be slave wages because you can't live off of that. That's why you have people working like multiple jobs. Now, all of a sudden, he cares about slave labor. But it gets even ugly because then it gets personal.
Land. You cannot just go and say, I like it. It's mine now. It doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it. I want to take it for mine. That is a very colonizing.
I have never ever said we're going to go to Greenland and quote colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
Ouch. So I don't know if you heard what he said, but she told him that he was irrelevant. And then he told her, you got fired from your job. Listen to this.
When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it. I want to take it for mine. That is a very colonizing.
I have never ever said we're going to go to Greenland and quote colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
Oh my God, no. And I'm sorry. She threw the first punch. She told him that he was irrelevant. And I feel like her coming on to CNN, I feel like this is her audition, right? Like she was fired from MSNBC. By the way, she spent a lot of time when she was on MSNBC criticizing Black men. That Tiffany Cross. Yes, she did. That's why like some of the Black men had a problem with her because she was always trying to blame things on Black men, right? So she did get fired from MSNBC. And I feel like this is an audition for her to get a CNN show or something. I feel like that's what she's trying to do. Like, let me prove that I'm relevant maybe over here. So that was kind of embarrassing, but she threw the first punch. So sorry, like we can't defend you on that one.
About the president of the United States doing
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
If you want to engage in personal insults,
I don't, but you
what
do.
You lack in a legitimate point, you make up for it in personal input.
I don't. You
personal
do.
insults. The point I am making is in this new world order, we are looking at countries, whether or not they're an adversary or ally, it is being determined on what kind of deal we can get. And we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way. We are increasingly isolated on the world stage.
No, we're not.
So if you want to engage in personal insults,
we're not
if I were
isolated.
you, I would reserve that for your party, who
We're
is
not
increasingly isolated. This our position outside of you.
It's not even a Republican or a Democrat thing. Both parties consider China to be an enemy. Both parties do. So you'll hear that anti-China rhetoric, regardless if the politician is Democrat or Republican. You'll hear it from both sides. But that was a something. That panel, I felt like, is this the Pierce Morgan version of the Allie Phillips show? It's wild. But the idea of that panel is supposed to have different voices like come together and talk about these issues. So what CNN has done, it's one of the changes that they've made, I would say since I think when they fired Don Lemon, was that they decided to make a decision to also bring on conservative voices along with what they would call left-leaning voices. I just call them liberals, together and to have these discussions and these conversations. So obviously there's going to end up being times when there is like some type of tension, but I felt like even going back to the first clip that I had, Tiffany came in hot. It's like you came in hot. People were pretty calm. They didn't even want to let Sharmichael speak. That is hilarious. I wonder his take on that. But he's probably one of the more, chill, calm dudes. And she just came in like, you didn't answer her question. You didn't answer her question. My God. Yikes. Abby Phillips, I think, can speak for herself, right? I think she can speak for herself. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Eric, we can go to part 2 of Type VNC. Thank you for the super chat. Chris said, drop that beat for JB. You are welcome, Chris. And of course, my comrade, JB. Shout out to Chris Arrow, who just became a Sabby member. Give Chris a big whoop whoop. in the house. Party over here. FM says Abby is not a good moderator. I think she can be too timid, right? Right? Like, I think as a moderator, you do have to be like, you have to be willing to jump in. Be Easy said the sisterhood is trying to form Voltron. Skylar says he's a former U.S. attorney, so he should know, and probably does. He's just hedging his bets. Interesting point. Capricorn lady, it's not just Tiffany Cross. A lot of panelists overtalk Abby. Yeah, I think she is kind of timid. Thank you, Hanny. Hanny said this show is the best on YouTube. Well, thank you, Hanny. That is really sweet. Thank you, Joseph. The people calling China my enemy are our enemies. And thank you, Courtney. UFFF. Shout out to Hard Lens. Hey. All right. Okay. And I think we're going to move on to the next story. Smash the like button if you haven't done so. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. Okay. We cannot end the week without covering the craziest stories of this week. New segment that we added to the show, and we have two short ones here for you that is very damning. One in particular, I am shocked that I think a lot of people just didn't know about. But shout out to my comrade who's been sending me these wild and crazy stories. The first one here, apparently there was another airline incident, and this time it involved U.S. House members. That's right. Congress members were aboard one of the planes. This was actually breaking news earlier today. Crazy stuff, man. Listen to this.
We are following breaking news near Washington, D.C., and another incident involving passenger jets at Reagan National Airport.
The FAA says it is investigating after two American Airlines planes clipped wings earlier today. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello covers aviation for us. He joins us now. Tom, there's been so much focus on Reagan National Airport this year. What do we know about this latest incident?
Well, honestly, that's why this incident is getting some attention, because normally wings clipping with airplanes, that's like a fender bender, right? And normally it's not that big of a deal, but it is Reagan Airport. And Reagan Airport, as you know, has had quite a bit of problems this year. Let's show you the video that we have today. It's not that dramatic, to be honest with you. Two American Airlines regional jets, one headed to Charleston, South Carolina, the other one going up to New York's JFK Airport. There's the captain right there talking about the fact that the passengers can't get off the plane until they pulled over to the terminal. Then they got off. But these two planes, which were out on the taxiway, the flight that was supposed to go to Charleston, according to the FAA, clipped the wing of the flight that was going up to New York's JFK.
Now, we've covered a number of these airline stories on the show this year. That's right. It seemed to have started more in 2025. But I think the clipped wing here is not the part that's crazy. What's crazy is when you see who was on this plane. Let's get to that part.
Now, on board the plane going to JFK, 5 members of Congress who are getting ready to leave for the long weekend. And they include Congressman Nick LaLota, Grace Meng, Josh Gottenheimer, Adriano Espaillat, and Richie Torres.
Well. Look at the people who were on that flight. Representative Nick LaLota, Grace Meng, Josh Gottenheimer, Adriano Espaillat, and of course, the guy on everybody's nerves, Richie Torres. Very interesting, huh? I know, right? Angie said, oh, snap. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I was listening to this story, and then when they said the names, I was like, interesting.
All of them were on board this plane. No injuries. The only serious damage to the aircraft, the plane that was going to, both planes' wing tips, I should say, did suffer damage. But that's the extent of it. This comes, though, after the mid-air crash we had in January, in which 67 people died right off the end of the runway there over the Potomac. And then we had another close call last month. And then we had a fight in the control tower at Reagan National. So Reagan National is in the spotlight. And today, another incident with members of Congress on board, guys.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff, you guys. Like, I was like, interesting, right? So that's one of our crazy stories of the week. I think also that one was announced today. So I think that one may have flown under the radar a little bit, but it was interesting. The people who were on there, you know, a lot of the AIPAC like shills or whatever, right? And then there's this crazy ass story. And I don't even know how to explain this one, but it will be entertaining to say the least. It appears that a judge in Pennsylvania was just found guilty of murdering her ex-boyfriend. You may remember this case from a couple of years ago, Judge Sonia McKnight. Now, we'll go back and look at what happened there. But imagine if you're a dude and you're in a relationship with a judge and you tell her one day, hey, peep this. I don't think we should stay together anymore. I want you to move out. I want you to move out. And instead of moving out, she shoots you. That's what happened in this particular case. And today that judge was found guilty. Let's get into it. Pennsylvania judge.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm James Crumble. That breaking news. Dauphin County Judge Sonia McKnight found guilty of attempted murder. A jury handing down that verdict moments ago. Seth Kaplan live at the Dauphin County Courthouse with the latest. Good afternoon, Seth.
Good afternoon to you, James. Yeah, the case went to the jury 9:30 this morning. Didn't take them long. Shortly after 11, we got word that, in fact, they had reached the verdict. Everybody, as you can imagine, rushed back into the courtroom. And that verdict, as you said, guilty. Guilty, actually, on 2 counts. The more significant count, attempted first-degree murder for the night of her boyfriend, Michael McCoy. Just to recap everything, and I'll get to more details. On trial here was suspended Dauphin County Judge Sonia McKnight back in 2019. She was cleared on charges of shooting her estranged husband in Harrisburg. That was found to be in self-defense. This case was...
Pause. Now let's just look at a little bit of incidents here, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't the first time. She was also accused of shooting her ex-husband. And they had, I guess, decided that that was self-defense, but I'm seeing a pattern. It seems like to me, Sonia likes to shoot her significant others. I don't know whether it's the husband or the boyfriend. Remember, I was telling you guys a couple weeks ago, you got to be careful who you date. I'm not joking about that. Like, some people are fucking crazy.
About what happened the morning of February 10th, 2024, along Saddle Ridge Drive in Susquehanna Township. Prosecutors say Michael McCoy, who was Sonia McKnight's boyfriend, woke up blind and in a pool of blood. Everyone agrees the relationship had been rocky. Everyone agrees there were only 2 people in the house when a shot was fired through McCoy's head. Prosecutors say for that and many other reasons, it was clear McKnight shot McCoy, who said he had never had a suicidal thought in his life and pleaded with EMTs and doctors to, quote, save me. McKnight's defense attorney said that was not at all clear. More gunshot residue on McCoy's hand, for example, than on McKnight. The defense alleged, quote, sloppy handling of evidence by Susquehanna Township police. Tried to raise lots of other doubts, but back live, James, not enough in the jury's mind to reach that standard of reasonable doubt that would have caused them to find, for the defense, to find Sonia McKnight not guilty. It was a jury of 6 men and 6 women from Delaware County. We're here in Dauphin County, but almost everybody involved in the case other than Sonia McKnight and Michael McCoy was from outside the county. The DA from Cumberland County, Sean McCormack, the jury from Delaware County, a judge from Lancaster County, all brought in to try to give as much of a fair shot at everybody as possible. But when you're talking about a suspended judge who was on trial here, keep in mind, James, the jury did not know that she was a suspended judge. The jury did not know about that previous case that she had allegedly shot, although found to be in self-defense, her for...
Pause. This is the piece I really wanted you guys to hear. I think that part is really important. Sometimes when you had a previous altercation, and let's say you're on trial for current said crime, there could be an agreement between the lawyers, depending on what type of deal or what type of evidence they have. Sometimes there's an agreement that is established that anything that happened prior to that event, so any of the other previous charges you may have had, cannot be brought up in discovery, meaning they cannot mention this in court. So I thought it was important that you guys hear that the jury, yes, they found her guilty, but the incident that happened with her ex-husband had nothing to do with their decision. So their decision is based on this case and this case alone. So I do think that part there is important for people to hear.
From her husband. So they were working with less information than some of the rest of us knew going into this case, and yet they felt they had enough information to find her guilty. Bail has now been raised to $3 million. She was immediately put into handcuffs, being taken to Dauphin County Jail.
Now, let's go into a little bit more of the background of this case in particular. You really got to be some kind of a nutso mofo. You are, and it's the black woman who's a judge. Why in the world? She was willing to throw her career away and her life away, her freedom away for this dude. Ladies, there are other dudes. Like, she was willing to do this. I don't understand. All he asked you to do was to move out. He said, move out. That's it. Why didn't she just move out? Let's get into this here, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of the background.
Break it down. So according to the Cumberland County District Attorney's Office, the victim, Michael McCoy, had tried to end the couple's one-year relationship in early February. He reportedly asked the judge to move out. He says she refused, and he tried to take her key away. But then on February 9th, he came home to find her on his couch in her pajamas. So police say he then leaves to go to a bar, but said he would be calling McKnight's mother to see if she could convince McKnight to move out, wanted to get her involved. Now that night, McCoy says he told McKnight that they would talk about the relationship the next day and says he went to sleep at around 11 p.m. But then he wakes up a couple hours later with this massive head pain and he was unable to see. When he started screaming, McKnight reportedly asked him, quote, Mike, what did you do to yourself? Well, you come to find out that McCoy had a gunshot wound near his right eye. But here's the thing. McCoy denies shooting himself, telling both police and hospital staff that didn't happen. The only other person in the home was McKnight. So she reportedly calls 911, telling them that she heard her boyfriend screaming, but she said she didn't know what happened. And as investigators looked into this, and as the investigation found, the gun that was used was registered to McKnight, and gunshot residue was reportedly found on her hands around an hour after the shooting.
Now, as a judge, you would have thought she would have known better. As someone who sits there and listens to cases over and over and over and over again, you would have thought she would have known better. Obviously, you guys know, like, they're going to be able to tell, right? Forensics can tell whether or not he did that to himself or someone else did that. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. She sounded a little crazy.
She was also allegedly deceptive when speaking with investigators. For instance, authorities explained that McKnight said she never left the house on the night of the shooting, but surveillance footage from neighbors' doorbell cameras proves that might not be quite the case.
Again, as a judge, you would think she would know that there could be cameras everywhere, right? Like, depending on, like, sometimes there's cameras on street lights. Yes, you know, some people have door cameras. You would have thought as a judge, she would have known better. And then what is interesting is, notice here when she's in handcuffs, the sweatshirt that she has on says, God is my refugee, Psalms. I think that's 91, Psalms 91. Don't call on Jesus now. I mean, it's just, I don't get it at all.
So McKnight was arrested on February 15th. She's currently in the Dauphin County Prison with bail set at $300,000. She has a preliminary hearing scheduled for next week. And McCoy, going back to him, as I said, he survived. He was released from the hospital, but he's blind in one eye. Now, do you remember when I said that this judge or this suspended judge is back in the news? I say that because this is not the first time that Judge McKnight has been in trouble. No. At the time of her arrest, she was actually suspended from the bench without pay. There were claims that she violated judicial probation in a misconduct case back in 2020 when she allegedly got involved in a traffic stop involving her son. She was acquitted of criminal charges, but she remained suspended. According to the
This judge was straight gangster.
District Conduct Board of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, McKnight violated 7 different rules governing standards of conduct for judges. Those violations included theft of time when she allegedly allowed employees to take extra vacation days. She also allegedly told her office manager to pretend that she never received a civil complaint regarding a loan that she owed. And then in 2019, McKnight was investigated for shooting her estranged husband in the groin. The prosecutors didn't file charges. They said it was self-defense. So much to talk about here. Let me bring in criminal defense attorney Natalie Whittingham-Burrell to talk about this, bring her into the conversation. Natalie, so good to see you. Thanks for coming on. I usually ask my guests their initial impressions. I really can't wait to hear yours in a case like this. We've covered cases of judges allegedly acting badly. This one's new for me. What are your thoughts on this one?
Hey, Jesse, it's nice to see you again. Yeah, new for me. I've heard of judges shooting people, but not twice.
You have? You have?
I have.
Oh,
you know.
Okay.
Heard of judges shooting people. It's happened, but not 2 separate incidents. That's definitely a first for me. And both being significant others. I wonder if they're going to look at that case again where she shot her husband in the groin. But no, this is absolutely wild. And it seems like she's had some issues on the bench leading up to this. I don't know if she's going to come back from that suspension ever.
Let me ask you a question before we even get into the aspect of the case.
And we can go ahead and pause it there. You guys can watch the rest on Law and Order if you want to. A Law, Crime. I said Law and Order. But it just, I don't. I really don't know what to say because it's just, to me, I'm like, this was not a one-off. This judge has some problems. Like, you can't just go around shooting people, judge or no judge. Like, what the hell? But she was found guilty. Wild things happening in the streets this week. Craziest stories this week. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Geez Louise. Anton said, Judge Sonia is a Crip. New York Varsity said, look, 2 is not a pattern. But come on. This is like OJ getting caught with another dead white girl. I can't laugh at that. Why are you making me laugh at this, New York Varsity? Oh my God. Cloudness says bootleg bootlickers have no moral code. Bryce says that a thin line between love and hate is her favorite movie. CJ says Sabby, and I don't say this to be disrespectful, but I wonder if the judge is possibly menopausally compromised. I don't know. Oh my God. Oh boy. Yeah, she's going through sometimes. All right, guys, we have one more story for you tonight that I do want to make sure we get to. This is pretty crazy, and it has to deal with independent media. First and foremost, smash the like button. Thank you. Okay. And we're getting back to changing history, okay? Because that's what happened here. Kim Iversen made a video about something that Tim Pool did. And in all retrospect, I thought it was spot on. Tim had a problem with that video. So there has been this back and forth feud between Tim Pool and Kim Iversen on X, but then it transferred over to video. So Tim Pool is responding to Kim Iversen, responding to the first video that she made. He said, Kim Iversen is making shit up because she's a grifter with an agenda. Here's me tweeting about the meeting just after leaving and a full day before Jewish Insider published anything. Additionally, Jessica Krause posted photos of us at the event. She posted before and during photos and videos. So he is sharing, I think, a screenshot here of a tweet that he made that said, just left a meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu in DC. Interesting discussion. I will discuss more tonight on Timcast IRL. And that is a reply to Kim Iversen saying, you admitted it to the Jewish Insider, published names after the Jewish Insider published names and described the whole thing. So let's get into all of this. So basically, to make a long story short, okay, there were a couple of influencers that attended a private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, and Tim Pool was one of those influencers. Now, I have big concerns about that, as did Kim Iversen, and I think that's really the point that Kim was trying to get across in the initial video when she covered this, which was that it's not okay if independent media is having a private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, because no, he's not going to meet with you to say, be transparent about Israel and Gaza. He's going to meet with you because he wants you to continue to be pro-Israel. He's not going to meet with you to let you be fair. He's going to meet with you so that you can spread propaganda that is going to benefit him. So they had a whole back and forth exchange, and I want to show you what Kim Iversen said here as she's responding to Tim Pool's tweet.
Well, to no real surprise, Tim Pool clapped back at the segment I did yesterday where I criticized him having a secret Chatham House rules meeting with Netanyahu and other Israeli senior officials. I want to play for you a little bit of the video that he did. He put out numerous tweets. In fact, here was one of the longest tweets that he put out, plus subsequent tweets after this one. In fact, he called me a lot of names. So in this tweet right here, he says, this is a grift. Kim is framing everything as inherently wrong. He says, Kim is twisting everything to fit a boogeyman narrative. Several of the people there posted photos before and during the event, yet she says no one else admitted to the meeting. She also said Chatham House rules is not for journalists, which is 100% about journalists. Who else is going to attribute quotes to someone in a publication? He then went on to say, I'm sure she'll be shocked to discover that I met in private with Trump, members of Congress, CEOs, in fact, even former Soviet generals, gang leaders, revolutionaries, all secretly, apparently, and in private. He then did a 42-minute video. So he's on a tear with this. So he has responded. Mm-hmm. He's not only tweeted this, he's also tweeted other things like this one here, calling me the name at the bottom there. Imagine if you did like a single Google search for the pronunciation. He makes fun of yesterday I was saying Chatham House rules. Apparently it's Chatham. Sorry, I'm not part of the DC swamp. And I also am from the West Coast, not the East Coast. So this is a totally unfamiliar word to me. He'll say, well, that's because you're not a real journalist. That's why you don't know this word. Well, or how about...
Let me pause there for a second. People kill me with this, you're not a real journalist thing, right? So Tim Pool basically became popular for covering Occupy Wall Street. And that was when he was more on the left, right? And somewhere along the way, I think he realized he could make more money on the right. So he did change, like his coverage changed. When it comes in particular to Israel and Gaza, he was very clear about the fact that he didn't really know much about the situation until after October 7th, right? So he was not really clear on that. Now, someone who is not really clear on that particular issue just had a private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. You guys don't think that's a problem? He's independent media. So yeah, the point that Kim was getting across in that initial video was that some of these people who say they're independent media are behaving in such ways that is allowing propaganda to slowly creep its way over onto the independent media side. And that's what you're seeing. And that is a problem. Benjamin Netanyahu met with you for a reason. He didn't meet with you because it's like, hey, let's just go and shoot the shit. No, Benjamin Netanyahu met with Tim Pool because there is a narrative that Benjamin Netanyahu wants those influencers to either continue pushing or start pushing. So that's a problem. Yes. And she rightfully called that out. Now, Kim and I don't agree on everything, but she's right about that. Let's continue.
Real journalists don't agree to Chatham House rules. In fact, only journalists that show up to meetings like the Bilderberg Group agree to this type of stuff. It's sinister. It's propagandizing. It's meant for elites. And, most people don't do it or know about it. So that's fine. I don't care. But Chatham, in order to make him happy. So he stops criticizing that. So he says, oh, shit, I tweeted literally after the meeting happened. And an hour after Jessica Krause posted a photo of me there with several people. Right. So he's saying, ooh, Kim, you got me. It was so secret, but it wasn't secret. So what are you over here complaining about? I'm not complaining about the fact we know about the meeting. I didn't uncover the meeting and I didn't put it out there for my audience like, look, I uncovered this secret meeting. No, my criticism is the fact you agreed to a meeting with a foreign leader trying to get us into war, a foreign leader who is committing a genocide. You agreed to a Chatham House Rules meeting with that guy, which is particularly sinister. That is different than an off-the-record meeting. That is also different than having an anonymous source or attributing a quote or information to, a senior leader in the Israeli government. That is a very different, Chatham House Rules is very different. We're going to get to that. But let me show you some of the 42-minute video he also did. Which, by the way, Tim is very sensitive, obviously, about this because the majority of his viewers are actually against him on this issue. They don't think he should have had this meeting. They do think he's more pro-Israel in his defense. They question his integrity. And how we know this for sure. The video he posted, the 42-minute video that I'm going to share clips from, as of right now, this moment, there are 5,000 likes on the YouTube video, but there are 6.3 thousand dislikes on this video.
Yeah, this is another thing she's right about. Like on that issue, they are not in agreement with him for the most part.
He is being ratioed on his tweets. He's being ratioed on this video. His fans are not in agreement with him on this. They're more in agreement with me on this. So this is why I think he's being particularly defensive and felt like the need to put out numerous tweets, calling me numerous names and making a 42-minute video. It's unfortunate. I like Tim. I've always liked Tim. I've been to Tim's, been on his show several times. And we bonded over being part Asian, both of us. And I still like Tim. I don't have anything against him. I am absolutely going to call out integrity issues in journalism when I see them, be they friend or foe. So I don't have a personal bent on this, but Tim certainly does with some of the things that he is, but he feels attacked. So I don't blame him. Let's go ahead and watch this first little clip from the 42-minute video, which you are free to watch the entire thing, of course.
I want to answer Eric real quick. You can see dislikes on a video if you have a certain tool, I think. Some people, I think if you have a tool, you can see dislikes on someone's video. It might be an extension that you have to add.
I'd like to thank Kim Iversen for this. Admittedly, it's a slow news day, but I think we get an opportunity to expose what it means to be a grifter.
Yes, we will.
We've had Kim Iversen on the show. I was a fan for a while, but she seems to have gone off the deep end. I suppose it's a desperate bid for relevance, as is with many people.
Wow. A desperate bid for relevance. I'm not the one who took $400,000 a month from a company without asking where they were getting their money from. Seems like that would have been integrity journalism rule number one. Find out where the hell the money comes from. And then you find out, whoops, it came from Russia. I'm not the one that defends the Israelis, that will not... That balks at, if you remember this clip, the USS Liberty clip, where he's like, oh, we can't talk about this, right?
Dude, I'm concerned with having American aircraft carriers over there. Like, what I keep being told about the USS Liberty. That's something with the Israeli government.
No, you should be careful about that.
Be careful about that. Be careful about that. Okay. So calling me the grifter here, saying that I'm doing the bid for relevance. I'm not the one that took an Access Journalism meeting with Netanyahu thinking that it was going to be under Chatham House rules. It ended up not being. That does not. But Tim went into that meeting believing it would be, and believing that people would adhere to it, believing that the meeting would be entirely kept secret. And when he saw that it wasn't, he decided he needed to come out with it. But he otherwise agreed to this. How many other meetings has he had under Chatham House rules where he's willing to go, sit, get the information? And under those rules, you are unable to attribute any of that information to anyone at any. It's very different than an unnamed source. An unnamed source, you could say a senior Israeli official expressed concern about blah, blah, blah. You could say that. Under Chatham House rules, you can't say that at all. You can't even, you basically have to act like the meeting didn't exist.
So I will say this much. For me, and I'll go on record saying this, I'm not having any meeting with anyone under Chatham House rules. I follow Sabby rules. Okay. And my whole thing is, and I've told people this before, there have been people who have contacted me and said, can I tell you something off the record and you can report on it? Well, no, if you tell me it's off the record, no, I can't. Like, just stuff like that. But I follow Sabby rules, and my rules say F that. I should be able to say, yes, I met with said person, especially if you're independent media. Otherwise, you're just falling into the same trap that corporate media is a part of. What are we sitting in these back rooms with cigars? Well, what is happening to independent media? This is why I said before, this is so important that we have to make sure that people who are independent stay independent. And that's up to you guys, because the money is kind of funny, but a lot of people don't mind being kind of funny, if you know what I'm talking about. So it's really up to the viewers in the audience for you guys to keep them in check. It's up to you to tell them, don't go that way. Stay independent. And for me, I'm lucky that I can say that I've stayed independent. But I'm going to tell you, when I see people who are so-called independent and they're meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, why did he contact you? Why they want you to meet with him? Oh, because Tim Pool has a big show. A lot of people have big shows. They contacted you. They didn't bring in anybody who gave the Palestinian perspective of this conflict. They ain't bringing anybody that's calling it a genocide. So that's a problem for me, number one. I'll let Kim go on a little bit more here, and then we're going to get to the Nico video.
So it's propagandizing. That's the purpose of it. It's meant for these elites to get together, spew out narratives to journalists, have journalists keep the information source extremely secret, not just anonymous, but not even attributing it to anything at all. And it's also different from an off-the-record conversation. An off-the-record conversation is you are gathering information from somebody in the know. You are not to be using that information publicly. You're not to publish it. You're not to attribute it. You're not to say anything about it. It's literally meant for background information or extra information so you can follow a lead. That is an off-the-record information, an off-the-record meeting. And again, an anonymous source or, don't attribute it to me. Keep, you could say senior level, you could say this, but don't say anything else. This is what I said. You can attribute that. When you have these types of other meetings, then you start saying stuff and you can't say, well, I heard it from a senior Israeli official. You're not allowed to say that. That's why it's so particularly sinister. So he goes on to criticize, and this is what he says. The Chatham House rule was never meant to be used by journalists.
Wrong. This is so ridiculously wrong. Kim doesn't even know how to pronounce the word.
Oh, here we go with the grammar police. Yes, if that's your only rebuttal, you know that you're already on the wrong foot. Or comment.
He definitely wouldn't like me then, because I mispronounce shit often. But you know what? I'm willing to admit it. Like, hey, I'm not quite sure about this, or how do you pronounce your name or whatever. But Tim's perfect, right?
Haters or anyone whose whole brand is, I tell you what the establishment won't.
Yes. Chatham House rules are so that powerful elites, literally, this is what they say in all these meetings. They say, if you quote me on this, I will be impeached. I will be fired. I will be strung up by the board. Our shares will collapse. But these are things that you should know.
That's not exactly quite true. That would be more like sitting down with an anonymous source and saying, again, a senior level leader or somebody with inside information or somebody close to Trump. We see that every day in the news. Chatham House rules is very different. That means come to the meeting, hear what we have to say, but act like it never happened. It just so happened Tim was not able to act like it never happened because Jessica Krause started taking a bunch of photographs and the word was already out there because the other people in the meeting, also not DC insider elites, they didn't know about Chatham House rules.
And
So it's basically independent media journalists walking into these smoke-filled rooms that we have criticized, like, politicians for doing as well. That's a problem. Guys, I've been trying to sound the alarm about this. I'm dead serious. Propaganda has been seeping its way into independent media. I'm not kidding, because some people are trying to take the money. Some people are willing to sell out for the money. And what they don't realize is, number one, if you scale the fuck back, some people spend a lot of money on this stuff, man. And everything behind me is cheap. That chalkboard was like $2.99. It's not even a real chalkboard. It's like a chalk mat or whatever. Like, everything behind me is cheap. And some people went and they spent a lot of money for these expensive studios, etc. You don't have to have an expensive studio to get your point across. And some of these channels, they're starting to look more and more like corporate media. What's the point of you being independent if you want to look like corporate media? I never really understood that. But this went on for quite a bit, right? Because Kim even had to, argue with the producer here. I want to bring this up. His producer had some things to say, I guess. Honestly, are you intentionally lying to your audience, or are you just this dumb? It takes all of 30 seconds to look up which rules are more secretive, and you literally just fed your audience bullshit. Where is your journalistic integrity? And she posts a screenshot here, says an off-the-record meeting is generally more secretive and restricts the sharing of information more strictly than a meeting held under Chatham House rule. The Vegas rule, which is often associated with off-the-record, dictates that nothing discussed in the meeting can be shared outside of it. The Chatham House rule, on the other hand, allows for the sharing of information but prohibits attribution to specific individuals. So, Kim did respond and said, Lisa, how do we explain this to you so that you can understand? Off the record means it's not meant to be shared publicly at all, meaning the person giving the information is not looking for you to propagandize on their behalf. In fact, they want the information to stay completely private, and they'd be upset if it got out. Chatham House rule means you're allowed to share any and all information, but not share where the information came from. It is a way for elites to spread messages they want shared without any accountability or attribution. Elites want the message out there. They just don't want the public knowing it's coming from them. Hope this helps. Damn. Damn, Kim. Okay. So why is this all important, right? Because I think that people forget who Tim Pool was. And I think we see it was interesting that he called Kim Iversen a grifter. Whether you agree with her or not, Kim does do a lot of research. You got to give her that, whether you agree or not. But let's see the evolution of Tim Pool. And Nico did such a good job on this. Watch Nico break down why this is so problematic. Again, you went into a smoke-filled room. You got information from genocider-in-chief Benjamin Netanyahu. And why is that okay? A lot of independent media has been compromised. Let's go into this here.
So Tim Pool, along with several other right-wing influencers, met with Netanyahu in what was called a Chatham-style meeting. So Chatham-style simply means, in journalistic terms, we're not allowed to know exactly what was said by whom in the meeting, nor are we allowed to know exactly who attended, although there were some journalists that slipped up and mentioned some names. So on its face, the fact that a bunch of influencers and journalists and pundits were invited to a meeting with Netanyahu and they were not allowed to mention direct quotes from Netanyahu should be a little bit suspicious to everybody. But to be clear, this motherfucker being invited to that meeting is hilarious. Because some of you all might recall, whenever he joined the Daily Wire, right after Candace Owens left, and was tweeting out these pro-Israel, Israeli flag posts, he tried to play it off like it was a joke and we just didn't know that we were being trolled. Trying to pretend as if his shift towards being extremely pro-Zionist and pro-Israel had nothing to do with the fact that he was joining the Daily Wire with Ben Shapiro. So Tim was just trolling. But apparently he did such a good job convincing the world that he was pro-Israel that he was literally invited to a private meeting with Bibi Netanyahu.
Not to mention, Tim Pool said so himself that he was not even aware of the Israel-Gaza issue until after October 7th. So why could you even choose a side at that particular point? Don't forget, Max Blumenthal went on to Tim Pool's show and gave a whole big lesson about Gaza and what Gaza was. Do you guys not see? How can you pretend you don't know when it was right in front of you? Let's continue.
This is the same guy who, whenever a guest brought up the fact that Israel has a disproportionate amount of influence on U.S. politics, he said that the world is just suffering from Israel derangement syndrome.
I think you got Israel derangement syndrome.
Okay, well, but
I call it Israel-Palestine derangement syndrome.
Then
Israel derangement syndrome. Israel derangement syndrome. I think you're obsessed with Israel. You have some kind of obsession with Israel.
I've answered your procedural objection.
You literally didn't.
I said
you brought up Israel every fucking time. Holy shit, brother. Dude, you're obsessed. It's like your brain is stuck in Israel.
And of course, when people called him out on social media for meeting with Bibi Netanyahu, he doubled down. Once again, claiming that everybody has Israel derangement syndrome. But I'm confused, Tim. Is it really derangement syndrome whenever they have the most financial influence over our politicians, which means they have the most political influence over our politicians and generally the world? Oh, and they were able to have a personal liaison within the United States intelligence community in which the black ops they committed were only known by him. And Netanyahu can just show up unannounced, invite some of the most popular right-wing Zionist influencers in the world to a meeting at the White House, and then tell y'all to shut up about what y'all talked about? The only thing deranged about this conversation is the fact that you are unwilling to admit how much influence Israel has over the United States, and even your ass. Because once again, we have to remember this is the same man who once had Max Blumenthal on to educate people about what was happening in Gaza.
You cannot say, and this is why the video still lives on forever, right? The people who interviewed people like Abby Martin or Max Blumenthal or Aaron Mate or even Kim, because Kim went to the West Bank, or Kim Iversen, and Kim Iversen was on Tim Pool's show. You can't say, oh, I didn't know about this. Man, please. Max Blumenthal was on your show for how long? Let's bring up the timestamp. 2 hours? 2 hours. And that was Max Blumenthal talking about the so-called beheaded babies hoax. You see what I'm saying? How can you say you didn't know? It's not like Max Blumenthal shows up and doesn't bring any receipts. It's not like he shows up and doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking about. Nico, you killing it.
He went from that to telling Bibi Netanyahu during a press conference that it's actually Qatar who's behind the rise in anti-Semitic content online. Which, by the way, is actually quite hilarious considering that Qatar is actually an ally of the United States and has never really ever made a move, a significant one anyway, against Israel. Not to mention, it adds insult to injury thinking about the fact this man had the audacity to say Qatar is funding anti-Israel voices when clearly there's motherfuckers in the room with Netanyahu because Israel is funding anti-Palestine voices. And
you see that? That was Dave Rubin.
and they don't even care if those voices actually know what they're talking about because Tim Pool admitted he doesn't know much of anything, if at all, about this issue. And yet he's sitting in the room with Bibi Netanyahu. Y'all think it's because of his expertise? No, it's because he's willing to shut down any and all anti-Israel talk or anything that can implicate them in anything shady. Like whenever the USS Liberty was brought up on his show, Tim Pool immediately said, you should be careful about what you're saying. And even Lauren Chen has to tell him, you know, they did end up having to pay out the American government because of what happened with the USS Liberty. And following this logic, Ian says that he has a genuine fear that there might be a missile launched out of Gaza that attacks the United States and it will be a false flag that actually came from Israel. And Tim proceeds to say, it doesn't matter where the missile comes from.
Dude, I'm concerned with having American aircraft carriers over there. Like, what I keep being told about the USS Liberty. That's something where the Israeli government.
No, you should.
No. Wait.
You should be careful about that one.
Allegedly, the Israeli Air Force jet fighter aircraft.
I mean, they did end up paying out the American government.
So I'm concerned, like false flag operation, like a missile comes out of Gaza and hits one of our aircraft carriers, but it was actually an Israeli missile. Well, I don't want. We should get out of there.
It doesn't. But let me stop you there. It doesn't matter where the missile comes from.
Oh, do you see this? It doesn't? Tim is acting like these videos don't exist.
So Tim is admitting he doesn't care if Israel commits a false flag that puts American lives in danger, as long as it benefits Israel. Yeah, it's because Tim is completely and totally morally bankrupt. That's why he got that meeting with Bibi Netanyahu. Because Bibi needs more people like that on his team. And I just gotta wonder, would Tim Pool and his audience and his ilk be okay if Xi Jinping came to the White House and invited a bunch of leftists to have a one-on-one meeting privately with a Chatham-style press conference? Or would y'all be cool if Vladimir Putin did that? Just out of curiosity. Because even after learning that Israel participated in killing American citizens, you were still willing to meet with Bibi. And if a leftist did something like that with Xi Jinping, even though he never killed a single American citizen, you would spend 2 hours bitching about it and then go on X and spend 2 more hours bitching about it. This is
Yes, sir. Everybody pay attention. I'm telling you, people have been compromised.
what makes people like Tim Pool so dangerous, because he's somebody who can literally admit he knows nothing about the issue, but because he has an audience and is willing to take money from anyone, as long as they're willing to pay the right price, he will say whatever he wants to whomever he has to say it to, even if it's against American interests and even if it's against the interests of his own audience. The only thing consistent about this man's principles is the beanie on his head. That's it. And the fact that Tim Pool is willing to look the other way when a genocide is happening for money says everything we need to know about him. But the fact that Bibi Netanyahu is recruiting people who know nothing really about what's happening in that region just because they're willing to tout the lines that he's telling him to tout says everything we need to know about him. In other words, you can't believe shit that's coming out of none of their mouths. And the fact that the Trump administration is personally inviting Netanyahu and allowing him to tell American influencers what they should and should not be saying about Israel tells us everything we need to know about him as well. So you go ahead and keep pulling that chair to make sure your master sits down comfortably, Trump. Can we see who you're really working for?
First of all, let's go ahead and drop the damn beat for Nico House. Dance with me. Dance with me. Do the butt. Shake the butt. Hey. There is no takedown like that. Takedown. He was spot on it. Guys, there has been infiltration. There has been compromise. I'm not kidding. And I've watched these things happen, right? So you can look back on my stuff and you can see I still talk about the same issues, maybe even added more to it. But some of these people, you started out covering Occupy Wall Street, and now you see just how ain't no way, man. You sitting there with Netanyahu. So yeah, it's a problem, guys, because we have people that are independent media, but they're doing the same things that corporate media do. And they are allowing propaganda to creep in. That's a problem. I think Theo hits the nail right on the head here. Here's a big part of it, right?
Because then you also wonder, like, what, like, if there's Israeli influence, because that's a big thing now. Like, how much Israeli influence is there in, like, American politics, you know?
Oh, there's a lot, yeah.
And it seems to be a ton. I feel like America's just like, it feels like we're just owned by Israel, you know? And we just never knew it.
I thought we owned them.
That's what I thought.
Uh-oh.
I think Theo hit the nail right on the head. By the way, Theo to me will always be Theo from Road Rules, because that's where I knew Theo from. He was on MTV Road Rules. But guys, I'm trying to tell you, they're getting to independent media commentators. They're getting to some of these people. Now, not everybody, but they're getting to some of them. And I told you guys, there were offers that were made to me, but I didn't take them. Some people are taking them. And if he's meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, like I said, you mean one side, not the other side. You meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, he wanted you to meet with him. I think we know what that that means your content is going to be like, which you've been defending Israel anyway. And now Benjamin Netanyahu's telling you what they want you to say. People have been compromised, man. And that's to Kim's point, right? We talk about changing history. What Kim was trying to get across is that you met with him because they want you to push the narrative that they want. He wants you to continue being pro-Israel and how to talk about Israel. That's why you met with Benjamin Netanyahu. And that's sad. It's a sad day for media, because what that says is that audience members are going to see this and they're going to say, we can't trust, can we even trust independent media? Because Tim Pool doesn't take sponsors, right? He doesn't have sponsors. Isn't that what he said? Like that coffee or whatever is his own coffee. And he said he was independent. They're getting to the independent people, you guys. And then you have people who came from corporate media, either because they were fired or laid off, and they're coming over to YouTube, bringing the corporatism with them. So I think Kim had a point. Whether she was pronounced Chatham right or whatever, I think is irrelevant at this point. The point that she was getting across is that your work is not going to be fair on that particular issue because you were compromised. Case in point. Let's go to, like same thing with Russell Brand. We saw what happened, how people have changed. Like it's so obvious. So obvious, man. Let's go to the comments here. Sebastian says, Tim Pool has always been a grifter. He was once part of Vice Media. Thank you, Huey. I wonder if Tim was offered money or if he's getting blackmailed. I'm telling you, man, this sounds like a Whitney Webb project, right? It sounds like something Whitney, may want to look into. JB says, Tim is just mad that Kim discovered that BB took a dip in the pool. Heidi says, I am sure Tim Pool is going to start pushing some major anti-China, anti-Iran propaganda in the coming months. Wait for it. Thank you, Baby Ethernet. Netanyahu needs Tim for media warfare and propaganda. Yeah, because he has a really large audience, you guys. Thank you, I Am Thor. Running for Congress, would love to talk to you. I will be the first to sign a contract with my constituents. The first through the door gets bloody. New Jersey, 10th District. We talked 12 months ago about the Thor movement. I remember. Email me, Thor. My email address is in the description box of my videos. Yeah, just email me. Nigel said, stop listening to Tim Pool in 21, just after the inauguration. Interesting. Thank you, North. Sabs, you are so right about propaganda seeping into indie and alt media and not just about this situation. That's why your channel is one of the only few I still watch regularly. Thank you. Well, thank you. And Max says, he said it didn't matter where the missiles came from. I know, right? That shit is wild. Let's get the Rockfin comment. All right. Thank you, Roger. Backing up what the person on Rumble said, this is retaliation for when we were talking about taking down Confederate statues and retiring Stars and Bars flag. We had no problem if they wanted to have their own museum. Our problem was it was on government property. We don't embrace traitors to the union. Our government reps the union. Cross think that she still has a show and misses it so much that she's trying to take over Abby's show. That's what it seemed like. And thank you for this one, Roger. We got all the raw materials we need to make these things here, Sab. Our textile manufacturing can be boosted through the growing cultivation and harvesting of hemp. The graphene that comes from hemp can be used for battery manufacturing better than lithium, as well as electronic components and printed circuit boards. Lab-grown diamonds and morphine, which is better than graphene, can be used as well. Well, Roger, you better tell it. Okay, you better tell it. All right. That is all for me tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to go live on Sunday, but it looks like I'm going to have actually have a meeting on Sunday now instead. So I won't be live this Sunday, but I'll be live again on Tuesday. And whatever you do, do not miss, if you can help it, don't miss next Thursday's night show. That is going to be lit. I have a special guest that hasn't been on the show before. So whatever you do, do not miss that one. But that's it for me tonight, guys. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. You know how we do it. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.